The art of performing magic is really the art of managing attention.
Stop.
Here?
Yeah.
Look at the card.
3.
It's a 3?
3. It is a 3.
Doesn't matter.
A general rule of thumb is that when a magician says that something doesn't matter, the opposite is usually true. For example, a couple of minutes ago, when David Blaine slipped 3 more cards into what everyone else thinks is a pile of 10, then asked Tariq to put them over his heart, the only thing that matters is that Jimmy Fallon chooses the number 3 from this forced flourish, so that when Blaine says that 3 cards will magically fly from his deck into Tariq's hand, the 13 cards will be there, and everyone will freak out.
10. 10's the original number. How many there? 11, 12, 13.
Did you catch it that time?
10. 10's the original number. How many there? 11. There's 3. And there's 4 more. Now there's 20 cards. 17, 18, 19, 20.
This is a great trick from David Blaine, and it functions on a simple concept, which all magic depends on: selective attention. The idea that the eyes and the mind can only focus on one thing at a time. This principle is something that magicians have known for centuries. In the earliest known book of magic in English, Hocus Pocus, the author includes in his 4 required skills for magic tricks such gestures of body as may lead the spectator's eyes from a strict and diligent beholding of his manner of conveyance. A few hundred years later, scientists began conducting tests on selective attention, like this one from Becklen-Cervone from 1983, which asks subjects to count the number of times the white-shirted players pass the ball back and forth. In this and other tests like it, a majority of people, more than half, fail to see the woman with the umbrella walking directly through the middle of the scene. The important thing to note is that selective attention is something that organizes our entire experience as human beings, not just our vision. I mean, David Blaine may be distracting Jimmy Fallon and the Roots when he loads these extra cards into the pile, but what's more amazing than the sleight of hand is that he's doing it in exactly the place where everyone is looking. And this shows just how powerful selective attention can be. In magic, manipulating attention is fun, it's what we expect, but it's not the only place we find this kind of activity. Let's take a look at another trick.
Are you watching closely?
On Sunday, November 27th, the New York Times published a comprehensive piece of good journalism detailing country by country the empire of business interests that Donald Trump has around the globe and how they might conflict with his job as president. The story was at the top of the front page. Then, at around 12:30 that afternoon, Trump tweeted this: "In addition to winning the Electoral College in a landslide, I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally." Make no mistake, this is a kind of magic trick. Like David Blaine, like any magician, Donald Trump is using selective attention for his own gain. He's misdirecting, sucking all the air out of a story that he wants you to forget. Now, misdirection is not new to politics. Politicians have been manipulating our attention for years. I mean, when the public asks a question, politicians figured out long ago that rather than actually answer it, it's much, much better to change the question. When you address negative publicity on its own terms, you end up with stuff like this.
People have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
Instead of moving attention away from the question of his criminality, Nixon aimed the focus directly onto that issue by denying it outright. A better magic trick is something that happened a few years earlier. When Vietnam War protests were gripping the country in the 1960s, politicians and elites who supported the war didn't address the protesters' actual concerns about the legitimacy of the conflict. Instead, they reframed the anti-war protests as anti-troop protests. And this political sleight of hand has proven really fruitful in undercutting protesters of not just the Vietnam War, but of the Gulf War and the wars on terror that followed.
I ask every American to find a way to thank the men and women who are defending our freedom.
Now, Donald Trump takes this a step further. He uses Twitter to maneuver attention away from negative press, but he doesn't reframe the debate so much as distract the country with statements so glaringly false and controversial that the media is forced to expend its energy on refuting them or covering them because they have to, because the winning president-elect saying without evidence that millions of people voted illegally will get ratings, because when the president makes a farce of the presidency, that is, in some sad way, newsworthy. And then when you're done covering that, a new tweet comes in that says flag burners should perhaps lose their citizenship or be sent to jail for a year. I mean, it's really amazing. The attention goes where he wants it to go. And without the pressure of sustained focus, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee is free to brush the real issue, the one we all forgot about, aside. I think you can expect this kind of thing for the next 4 years. Expect every substantive criticism to be met with a ridiculous tweet. It's time for all of us to start thinking of our own attention as a limited and valuable resource. Because when you do, you can be a little more certain that the card you're choosing is actually yours.
Stop.
There is a new Nerdwriter video every Wednesday, guys, so if you click that box that I've conveniently set up right there, you'll subscribe to this channel and get all the videos. Sorry, David Blaine, for revealing how your trick is done, but it was a useful metaphor for what I wanted to talk about. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. They make sleek, intuitive websites where you can go and make a website without having to know coding. I made one called thenerdwriter.net, which you can check out and see sort of an example. If you sign up for a year, you can get a free domain name, and if you use the offer code NERDWRITER, you can get 10% off your first purchase. Thank you for helping to fund this channel without asking to interfere in the content. That's a huge thing for me, as a lot of you guys know. Anyway, I'll see the rest of you next Wednesday.